Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Education Matters with Jim O'Connell. I'm glad you could take a moment to join us. If you're watching this on Tuesday, the 12th of December at 6 p.m. or between 6 and 7, you're watching live. And I'd be very happy to hear from you. If you've any thoughts or comments you'd like to offer, the number is 640-3091. That's 640-3091. And this show, as many of you will know, is repeated a number of times during the week on Manchester Public Television. It's also available online at IPM Nation, so you can find it there on YouTube, etc. So if any of you want to go to those extravagant lengths to find it, but anyway. Here we are on at the end of the first week of December. I'd just like to start by saying, the week that's in it, or the month that's in it, heading up to Christmas. This is it's a very special time of the year, and it kicked off for me last on Saturday when we had the parade in Manchester, the Christmas parade, and I have to say, I was thrilled by the size of it and the scale of it and the number of people who were out and about. And I know it's now too late for those of you who didn't make it, but many people may not have been there. But I tell you, you missed a wonderful city occasion. Elm Street was packed. There were people everywhere. The restaurants were full. People went to great lengths. I was very impressed with the number of floats there were and the amount of effort that organizations and companies put into putting those floats together. I recall previous Christmas parades in Manchester, and sometimes they were okay, and sometimes they were kind of poor, and occasionally they were great. But this year it was exceptional. It was exceptional just in size alone. I think the parade went on for about an hour and a half. It took for the parade to pass. It was preceded by the Santa Shuffle, which was itself just spectacular to see. I think it was 1,500 people dressed as Santa Claus running on a route through Manchester. I know my friends and brothers in the Ancient Order of Hibernians facilitated that run, like they do many runs where they manage the barriers and street blocking for blocking off various streets. But so it started with that, and as I arrived on Elm Street, I wasn't there in time for the complete Santa Shuffle, but I did see all the Santas, and it was just so colourful and so exciting. And all of a sudden, we'd gone from Thanksgiving the week before, and it's like, okay, we're into the Christmas season. Or for those of us, for Christians, Christmas doesn't start Christmas starts at Christmas, so it's really the Advent season, the period of preparation, and we spend the next 4 Sundays preparing for the for actual Christmas itself and the celebration of the birth of Christ. But this last Saturday was an occasion where it kicked off for me the feeling that Christmas was around, because I kind of rebel against the whole Black Friday, Black Thursday thing where men and women go dashing out of their houses at 3 o'clock in the morning to go shopping for Black Friday. Actually, as it's happened more recently, now we have people advertising they're open at 5 o'clock on Thanksgiving afternoon. So wipe the turkey and the cranberry jelly off your chin and head out. And to me it's awful. So again, I'm a great believer in let people do whatever they want to do and not judge others. So it's not for me, and those who enjoy it, I guess, good for them. But anyway, from a Manchester point of view, I would suggest, if you can remember it, 360 days from now as opposed to 365, when the Manchester Christmas parade is on next year. What a great thing to come out to be with friends with, to have young kids there. There were lots of children out, and the fire department was there in full regalia and passed the boot around, and it was just a very happy community time, and I loved it a lot. The fact that I managed to meet with some friends. Well, we had friends come from the southern New Hampshire area, down near the Massachusetts line. We had friends from Derry and friends from different parts of the city or different parts of the state who came to be part of that occasion. All the restaurants and bars were busy. It had a wonderful vibe to it. The fact that I got to have one or two beers in the middle of it wasn't any harm either. So congratulations to all of those involved in that particular episode. Anybody who was in Manchester last Saturday afternoon would have thought very highly of the city and everything that was going on there. So kudos to anybody involved in it. It was a great time. And then on a personal note, I was up at Syracuse on Sunday. So following quickly on the Saturday night event for what was a celebration of what I think they might have called it a holiday concert, but it was a brass ensemble, choirs, organists, and others playing at the Hendricks Chapel, which is on the campus there. But why it's of note is that it was an ecumenical service. So what I hadn't been to one that was that well organized before, where they did a wonderful job of including people of lots of different traditions, and to do it so smoothly and to do it so well, and even people of no tradition, so it was a very heartwarming event where nobody was saying that there was any attack on Christmas or anything. It was quite the opposite. It was all benevolence and people celebrating from all their different traditions together for an hour and a half, surrounded by beautiful music, and just a wonderful, wonderful time. So I would suggest that to families in particular. I talked to a young boy today. He was 8 years old, and we were driving by the Courier Museum, and I was talking to him about. He had said to me, he's 8, and he said he liked to draw, and that he was asking Santa Claus for crayons and pencils, and as he said, and some plain white paper. So that he could draw. And I said to this young man, who I don't really know, but I happen to be bringing him somewhere, and a young boy, I shouldn't say young man, he's 8 years old, he's a young child. And he had never been to an art gallery or to a museum. And I'm not shocked by that, I'm not surprised by that. I think the truth is that there are many, 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 many children, perhaps the children of some of you watching this, have never been to an art gallery or to a museum. And I know that at the Courier Gallery in Manchester, there are a number of events going on in the coming weeks. I think there's an exhibition right now on Toulouse-Lautrec at the Courier Gallery, and they're having some events that may dovetail with the season, etc. But my thought is that as you head up towards the holidays, you can get caught up, and maybe rightfully so, I don't know, but in the acquisition of gifts and acquiring things, and then for this, it's all done for this momentary explosion of giving that happens for an hour and a half or 2 hours on Christmas morning, when it's like, it's like a volcano erupting where gifts are opened and handed out, and this frenzy of giving and giving, and sometimes less than sincere tears in the corner of eyes as gifts are accepted or given, and it's all very blah in the end. Or if it isn't blah, it's just it's effervescent for a moment, and then that's sort of the culmination of it all. And all of a sudden, we've got people going out shopping on Christmas afternoon for whatever holiday Hallmark cards and the networks decide to give us next. I don't know what that would be. Probably I don't know. Valentine's Day or something. I don't know what New Year's Eve first, of course, and then Valentine's Day. But sort of the meaning of it all is lost. But my as I've said on this program a number of times, in part of education of children is not just about going to school, dropping kids off at school in the morning, handing them over to a group of teachers to teach them, and then picking them up in the evening or having them come home in the evening, and and education stops until it starts again tomorrow morning at 8:30 when the teacher gets to have them for the day. and then goes on again. You know, education and its value is sort of it's much larger than that, and it doesn't have to be formal, and people don't have to feel challenged by it. You know, it's not like people don't have to feel inadequate about it, or oh, other people do more than I do or less than I do. It's none of that. You know, it's simply viewing. Viewing your opportunity with your child to be an opportunity to impart to them as much knowledge and understanding and etc. as one can, and part of that is exposing them to, you know, different things. I know that, for instance, when my kids were little, and even not so little, one of my 4 children loved the zoo, and so we used to go to Franklin Park Zoo, and we'd go there very often. But one of the littler or lesser known gems is the Stoneham Zoo, and it's only 40 minutes or so down I-93 from Manchester. And Stoneham Zoo is perfect for small kids because you can get around Stoneham Zoo in about 45 minutes. Without rushing, but without sort of dallying, etc., etc. You could make it longer if you wished, but you could do that sort of circuit through Stoneham Zoo in about 45 minutes. And first of all, it's obviously educational, just sort of educational in the classic sense on its face. Learn about animals and habitats and etc., etc. But Stoneham does a wonderful job at Christmas time of making it like a winter wonderland, and especially once the snow falls, because they have all kinds of animals like the European ox, for instance, which is like which is like a buffalo, but it's a European buffalo, big, you know, fur-covered animal. And then they have like the Arctic fox and the Arctic hare and things, which are, you know, these animals who are you know, who live in the coldest of places, and so you go to this little zoo, and if you've got anything, you know, I don't know about 2 and 3 year olds, maybe them too. I mean, I think I had my kids pushing them along there, you know, in a little wheelie as they went sort of through these things. But you know, kids of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's a winter wonderland. It's cheap and inexpensive. It's the opposite of cheap. It's a rich environment in terms of environment. Easy to do, you know, Thursday afternoon, Friday night, Saturday morning, Sunday afternoon. What a wonderful thing for a family to plan to do either between now and Christmas or over the Christmas vacation. So whether it's that or many of the other opportunities that go on in Manchester and Greater Manchester, there's an awful lot to do other than just going to the mall and buying, you know, electronic gifts and opening them and throwing the paper around the ground. Well, I'm not against that, because I'd like to get a couple of presents myself for anybody listening in my family. It's not like I'll object to them, but I just think that the idea of education and what education is, and I'm reminded as we head up to the holidays in this special time, about a discussion that was going on Manchester social media around the summer vacation, when parents and if some of these people are watching, I'm not trying to pick an argument with anybody. We're all entitled to our opinions, etc. But you know, people were on talking. They were exercised and agitated about the idea that, especially in high school, that that teachers had given required reading to do during the summertime. Now, for some courses, like an AP English course or something, it might have been 3 works. As you go down through the levels, etc., it might have been less, and of course the quality of, or the seriousness of perhaps the difficulty of the work changes over time as well. But the idea was that some parents were resistant to that, and what's underlying that, of course, is this idea is that school finished on June 15th, and my kid needs a break. Kids need to be kids. My kid needs time to just relax and not think about it. They need time. Boys need to be boys. Girls need to be girls. And they need to go off out and have fun. And hey, I'd be the first one to say, absolutely, man, go right at that. You know, enjoy yourself. Don't be a couch potato. have your kids go out and experience life as it should be experienced. But part of that is education. Everything that they do is education, and it's just a matter of whether you have them in a rich environment, or whether you have them in some sort of blah environment. And reading is, in this case, reading is a lifelong habit, something that will stand these kids in good stead. There are things to be learned, and when I think especially about the body of work that is often used in English courses coming into high school or after freshman year, and in those years. And I don't know, different schools will do different works at different times. But you think about something like To Kill a Mockingbird, for instance, or A Lesson Before Dying, or A Tree in Brooklyn, or there's so many other works. Or I think about grade school coming into high school, like sixth grade, maybe Holes and some of these other novels. How does a child ever get to understand the world is seen through somebody else's eyes and through some other lens? And reading, of course, is one of the great ways to do this, because you can be a South African or Afrikaner farmer on the Svelte. One day you can be a sea captain of a pirate ship. The next day you can be whatever it might be, some Russian, agent or something the day after that, and you could be a farmer in the Ukraine the day after that, and so in order to understand the world, you need to know something of it. And so the whole idea is that parents should open up their idea about what education is and what education means and what education can be. And I think this period heading up into, as we get towards the Christmas holidays, there's another block of time where parents have an opportunity to spend time with their kids and to help them to learn and to know the world a lot more. Another and separate thought that I have for this period is, as I often mention on this show, it's not that I lurch from one sort of season to the next, one period to the next, but in my mind, I've always thought that a school year is made up of periods of more intense activity and less intense activity. So, after a vacation, after some days off, or periods when there are regular half weeks or short weeks because of elections, because of holidays or whatever else, it's very hard to get into the meat of a curriculum, into the meat of a class, and deliver value, and teachers, giving projects and work and trying to work through the material. And this is such a time. So in my spiel to my kids, these are the times when I say, there's some heavy lifting to be done right now. This is the time to sort of pay attention, work hard, because we're in the 5th of December already. Next week, the Monday the 11th, the following week Monday the 18th, and not a lot happens after that, because Monday the 18th, people are starting to think about it's time, the holidays are coming and things are winding down. So this is a period when, 2 or 3 good weeks of work, paying attention, doing that extra little bit at nighttime, etc. That's the stuff that gives your kid the leg up. It's the thing. It's the difference between, having an A and having a B plus, or having a B as opposed to a C plus. You can make differences right now. So that's my spiel on that. The next thing, ladies and gentlemen, I want to just talk briefly about. I'm looking at the MANSD website, which is Manchester School District website, and just the one thing that's on here that's important, I guess, is that let me see, the Coffee and Conversation with Dr. Vargas. The most recent one was cancelled a couple of weeks ago, or a week or so ago. The next opportunity to meet and greet with Dr. Vargas will be on, let me just scroll down here and find it. So December the 13th at 7:30 in the morning at Jewett Street School, and then December 14th at 4:30 in the afternoon at Parkside. Let me grab this call here. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
And in his eyes they shine like the diamonds. You'd think she was queen of the land. And her hair hung over her shoulders.
Tied up with a black velvet band. Very nice. I love it. Is what? Wait, who's this? Do you have another verse for us, or was that it? All right. So thank you, caller. There's somebody still on there, I think. But anyway, thank you. Call in again if you'd like to add more to our afternoon. Are you still there? All right. The Black Velvet Band it was. So. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for calling in. It sounded like maybe somebody from the Hibernians or something having a crack, but I don't know what it was. But tied up with the Black Velvet Band, yes. Well, there's another thing. At Christmas time back home, there was a little bit of drinking went on. Some of it was coffee, more of it was tea, and even more of it was other things. But besides that, there was a lot of singing went on. People get together in houses in Ireland and sing late into the night, and things like the Black Velvet Band, which was the song that gentleman was singing. Yeah, I've sung that a time or two. So yeah, there you go. If you whoever called in, if you have an occasion where you need another voice to add to that, I'd be happy to show up and give you one or two songs. Anyway, back to this. So December 13th at 7:30 in the morning is Jewett Street Elementary School, and then December 14th at 4:30 in the afternoon at Parkside Middle School. And those are the next two occasions when you'll be able to meet and talk with Dr. Vargas. And then January 10th, and he'll be at Beach Street School in the morning early at 7:30, and again January 11th at Hillside. That was the one that was postponed from earlier, I believe, or maybe it was the central one. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's a wonderful occasion. It's an opportunity to meet with Dr. Vargas and listen to whatever he might have to say. It's usually very minimal. He's really there to listen to you as parents. So if you have concerns, etc., that's there's this superintendent, whatever else about him, he has certainly made himself and continues to make himself available right through into this schedule is on the MANSD website, goes right through to May 10th of next year. So every a couple of times each month, he's available for people to speak to him. So there's no reason to sort of feel isolated or feel as though the school district is not listening to you or responding to you. Get in your car or walk to your local school, and you can meet with Dr. Vargas. One of the things that's happened in the interim since we last spoke is that Dr. Vargas has been has agreed to do another year as superintendent of schools. I know some people got a little agitated around the fact that 3 or 4 or maybe 5, maybe it was 4. Members of the school board didn't vote in favour of Dr. Vargas of the contract being renewed right now, and I don't want to. I've yet to see the evidence of if there are any issues there. As I understand it, I think a legitimate argument can be made that there's an incoming mayor, and that the incoming mayor have an opportunity to have a say and have input on this, and that as a school board member one might choose to abstain or not to agree to this vote being taken early, when really it could be left for the incoming school board, because there are some significant changes to the school board, etc. I don't view it, and others may disagree, but I don't view the no vote as an anti-Vargas vote. I continue to believe that the school board is in support of Dr. Vargas. I'm expecting that to be the case and to continue to be the case. And again, I don't want to be a Dr. Vargas devotee. I mean, I think Dr. Fargus has done a good job. I think he's done better than his predecessor. I know he's going to have a tough time. He's going to need the support of everybody when I hope he brings forward a redistricting plan to the incoming school board, and that's going to be it's always difficult because the whole "not in my backyard" and "don't do it to my school" thing is going to be there, but. I think he has the wind in his sails, so to speak. I expect that the incoming mayor, Mayor Craig, I would imagine that she would be supportive of it. It's the right time if you want to sort of read political tea leaves. That it's early in a Craig administration. You get to make the change. You make the changes early. They're pushed through. They happen, and people get to see the benefit of it. Out over 2 years, so that you're not living with the turmoil around that, because they're definitely I have no insight as to where the lines may be drawn and what streets might get moved from one school to another, etc. But so without having any knowledge about how that will happen, I expect that it just is bound to be the case that some people will feel aggrieved that my father went here, my grandfather went here, I went there, I want my little Johnny to go there, kind of conversation. And of course, I think if everybody could do it perfectly, wave a magic wand, one would satisfy all needs. But in the end, we need to do redistricting. It needs to be done as a matter of some urgency, I think, and because we need to move on from that point. That is not an end state. That's a beginning state. That's the first step. Because once that is done, and we look at where we are at that point, it's then that we can begin to plan about what the future might look like. Because the future might hold lots of things. The future might hold a change to the profile of schools, the way that schools are currently, first through fifth grade for elementary, and then sixth, seventh, and eighth grade for middle school, and then ninth through 12th for high school. That's something that people might want to look at. I'm very happy with it as it is today, and at first flush, I would prefer it was left as it is. But if there are smarter, brighter people who have better ideas, and if it makes sense, then I'm, of course, ready to listen to that. The whole middle school versus junior high school issue might be revisited. I don't know. I know there are conversations going on around curriculum offerings, etc., in our schools and what they might be. That's an important conversation that needs to happen. And then we need to have a conversation around facilities and what our facilities are and what we need for present use and what we need for future use. I think we need to get into our heads the idea that just because something was always one way, that it doesn't necessarily mean that that's how it's going to be into the future. But that my biggest worry is that the decisions will be made on the basis of this idea that we can't afford any more, we can't do any more. We're doing everything we can already. We've got to look backwards. I'm hoping that we have a paradigm shift in that thinking in the city, not for all you people who, think as that this is code words for let's go out and spend money willy-nilly. I don't see that in the tea leaves. I don't see it happening. But I do believe as a city and and therefore as a school district that we're ready for a new day. And when I talked about the excitement downtown on Saturday afternoon last for the Christmas parade, and I see the things that are happening there, and the buzz that there is around the city, the young people. I look at someone like Chris Stewart or Will Stewart, sorry, with Stay Work Play, and that group of people. And sort of the people that I think he represents. Maybe he doesn't think he represents the same group, but my idea of sort of the newer Manchester, there's an excitement about it, and our school system needs to reflect that. And I think that if we look at the people who are most sort of conservative in their thinking and most concerned about, making sure that we spend the absolute minimum, and I dislike that whole premise, but there just are people like that, and we have to live by it. They hide themselves in clothing, which is, I want to be a conservative, I want to be fiscally responsible, we have to do the right thing to manage the scarce resources that we have. That for most people that I know who have that worldview is a cloak that actually, if they may not even know it themselves that it's a cloak, because truthfully, it doesn't matter what the level of spending is, whether it was half what it is today, they'd still want it a little bit less or hold the line of where it is, because they're just psychologically and ideologically averse to ever actually, investing in the future. I think our city needs investment for the future, and I think our school districts do, and our school district does, and also the way in which we allocate current resources. That's where sort of the meeting of the minds can happen, where smart people who are want to hold the line on spending can still agree about new ways in which to deliver education, etc., etc. But to do it from a point of view of benevolence for the benefit of the kids, and not in some sort of anti-public school stance where in the end they don't really support public schools at all, and would be happy to do what they can to undermine public schools. So I'm hopeful we can actually reach some equilibrium here, that the new school board will put aside ideology and work towards the next generation of schools in the city. The first step of that is Dr. Vargas delivering the redistricting plan, and not just the plan, but delivering redistricting. It should be, to me, it should be short, sharp, shock treatment. And bring it out, announce it, discuss it briefly, implement it. And then let the chips fall where they may afterwards. If it turns out that Dr. Vargas has, with the best intentions of the world, that his plan is untenable or becomes problematic, or it proves to be a not viable solution, then I'm all for hanging him out to dry. And I don't want that to happen at all. I like the man, and I hope that. I hope that he will stay here and continue the work that he's begun. But the way in which I view things is, you do something, you have a CEO, you allow him to, you give him his head, you let him do something, let's do it. Let's not have the first school board member who proposes, a subcommittee to look into the plan and to have 25 public meetings on it, and to discuss it till the cows come home, and then have one or two school board members come up with their deeply thought alterations to the plan. I'm totally against all of that. I think Dr. Vargas has had a year and a bit to look at it. He's had input from the public already. Leslie Want has chaired a committee on redistricting and listened to people and traveled around the district listening to people and gathering information. The information has been gathered. There is no perfect solution, I'm sure. There's no absolute. There is an optimum solution somewhere. Maybe we'll find it. Maybe we'll be optimum solution -1. It doesn't matter. The solution will just having the solution is necessary in order for us to move forward. Because, as I've pointed out many times, let's be very clear. This idea that redistricting is suddenly going to free up, money and resources, etc., is that's a forlorn hope. What it will do is it will better distribute the resources that we have. Because, as I've pointed out many times on here, currently, Manchester, the two things I continue to say: spends less per student than every other school district in the state of New Hampshire, and has less teachers per student than any other district in the state of New Hampshire. And in that second category, we're in our own little category of our own. We're not just like a 0.5% behind others. We're significantly behind the next lowest school district. So when the redistricting is done, remember, there'll still be the exact same number of teachers and the exact same number of students. And when you divide the number of students by the number of teachers, the number, whatever that number is, will be exactly the same the morning after redistricting has been completely completed. That number won't have changed by 1/1,000,000th from what it was the day that you started redistricting. So while it will allow for better planning, and there are lots of pluses, and it has to be done and should be done, it isn't going to change that fundamental. And that fundamental does need to change. But it will allow us to look at the school district more differently and say, okay, now we know where we are. I know that one of the issues that's tangential to that, but has also been discussed, is the issue of levelling in the schools. And I know that within the high schools, in recent weeks, there were internal conversations around levelling and how lowering the amount of levelling or eliminating levelling and how that might work. I know that students were asked their opinion on the topic. From what I heard, the conversations from the students were that many of them liked levelling as it was, but I think it depends on which kids you asked. It seems to me that the level 3 and 4 kids like levelling an awful lot better than the level 1 or 2 kids like levelling. That's not universally true, but I don't think there's any surprise that that's the case. We'll see where that goes, because the changing of levelling and what's levelled and how it's levelled will have a fundamental effect on teachers and on students and on opportunities, etc. I also know that another topic that is on the plates and should be on the plates of the incoming school board members will be the issue around sameness or uniqueness of the high schools. There was which I think was a false idea, a false target previously, where some school board members were very much in favour of there being equity across the high schools, excluding MST for a moment, as sort of a different model. But with the other 3 high schools, West, Memorial and Central, that they offer equal. So in the name of having equal opportunity, that equal opportunity meant sameness. So if you had, Russian studies, which we don't have, but I'm just saying, Russian studies 1, 2, and 3, if that's offered at Memorial, it should also be offered at Central and at West. Now, my reading of those people over recent time has been that particularly school board members from the west side of Manchester, in defence of West High School, seem to me to be pushing, and I mean all of them, but some of them were pushing this idea, were more in favour of that idea than others. And I think that was a sort of a defensive reaction to the downsizing and the elimination of programs at West High School because of the much smaller numbers, given the absence of both Hooksett and, most importantly, Bedford over the last 10 years. However, I've heard. I was listening to John Avard, the school board member from the West Side in Ward 10, I think, commenting at the last school board meeting, and say he was talking about the uniqueness of some of the programs at West High School. And in particular, I know that the theatre and arts program, theatre, maybe it's got a different title, it's theatre and acting, or forgive me for not knowing the exact title of the whole program, because it's not just a course, it's a program, right? So the performing arts, theatre and performing arts. So already in the city of Manchester, West has this uniqueness in that it offers this program, and I, in my mind, I think that's a good thing, and I think what I was hearing from John Avard was that he was promoting this and talking about this was a particular strength of West High School, and of course the ROTC program as well. But so that gets me to the point, gets you to the point that there's nothing wrong with having having schools have particular strengths of one kind or another. And in this case, I know of young people in the past, certainly, who chose to, who asked to go to West High School because they had a strong interest in performing arts and theatre. Now, that's not to say, I know also that both Memorial and High School have school plays and have theatre in that sense, but my understanding is, I'm pretty sure, that theatre is not taught as a subject anywhere other than at West High School. And so I think that model can work very well in the city of Manchester, and we need to look at that. And I'm pleased that we're going away from the let's duplicate it everywhere. Because one of the examples, we lost programs in my kids they went to Central High School. I still have two there right now, and at Central High School, the number of programs that have been eliminated at Central High School over the years is just vast. Now I hear people say that we are offering that as a school district we're offering too high a number of courses. I've yet to be convinced of that. To be frank, I haven't done a study of it or seen empirical data that says that that's the case. So I'd really like to see that proven out rather than just said, because in the end, if I happened to be a teacher at Central for the last 20 years, and given my Black Velvet Band friend who called earlier on, if there was a course on Irish heraldry and music and whatever, right? Some ethnic Irish studies or Druidic history or Celtic tradition or whatever it might be. That might be a course that I would be perfect for. And besides teaching what I teach, if I was a history teacher or some other social studies teacher, and I offer this course for those students who want it, which is, Celtic traditions or, music in the Western European world, wherever the heck it might be. What's wrong with that? Why not use Jim O'Connell's knowledge of this? Somebody who served in Iraq in the first Gulf War, who wants to teach a modern history class on the history of political decisions in warfare for against war in the United States, 1960 to 2010. That's a nice 50-year period, which has bookends starting with Vietnam and ending with Gulf War II. Why wouldn't you have a ex-military teacher who has experience in that area, who has a passion for it, who has a library of books at home on this topic, who's talked about it and thought it and thought about it and taught it? Not easy for an Irish guy. Why not use that experience and etc.? I remember having a professor once who had been he was a security officer at the American consulate in Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania, when Lithuania was one of the Baltic republics, when it was a Soviet republic. So here was a guy who was a Marine Corps colonel who was head of security at the U.S. consulate in Vilnius, who had all kinds of inside and nuanced understanding of America in the Cold War. Not a John le Carré version, not a popular culture version, not a whatever, but actually somebody who'd been, boots on the ground, working at a consulate inside the Iron Curtain during the Cold War. To cut somebody like that off at the knees and say, oh well, because we can't offer that course, these are university courses I'm talking about, of course, but just the analogy works, right? That's, we can't offer that course at Memorial because we'd have to find some guy, of equal caliber to teach the course in Central High School. I think is a nonsense. So I'm hoping that one of the things that the incoming school board will look at has to do with curriculum, and please, in the name of all that's holy, let's not have it a conversation just about how do we reduce the number of offerings. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm all in favor of if we've got an offering in at West that's horseshoe maintenance. Please, I'm fine with that. Japanese basketry. I don't know. If that's the level of esoteric, exotic examples that we have, then I'm not against eliminating some of those things. But eliminating the things that might bring kids to an understanding of the world or excite them for school. In the end, our job is to prepare, great students to do great things in the world. and we do that by not dumbing down curriculum, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm hopeful that we get to the first week of January. There is one school board meeting left. I know that there will be a school board meeting next Monday. Frankly, I don't know what the curriculum, what the agenda is for that school board. We're kind of in, we have like a lame duck school board, a lame duck mayor, and I mean no disrespect. I'm just saying, we're at the end of a period of 8 years of Mayor Gatsis's rule of the school board. We're losing some school board members, and we're going to have some new school board members, and new aldermen too, of course. And hopefully that's a new day in Manchester with all its pluses. I don't expect to win all the battles. I don't expect that everything will certainly become Jim O'Connell's worldview, and we're going to start building new schools and properly financing labs and science and et cetera, et cetera. I have no reason to believe any of that will happen, but whatever that, there is the new incoming school board is definitely a heterogeneous group, right? It's not like there was a cleaning of house and a whole load of one particular mindset was elected onto the school board. When I look at the first reading of the tea leaves on the school board, I see a number of different constituencies, different ideas and thoughts, and I can see coalitions being built back and forth, and people agreeing in one area and disagreeing in another. So I don't want to be all kumbaya and everything, but and overly hopeful, but before we begin, this is the kind of diversity of opinion that might lead us to some future, and at least hopefully the people who have their feet on the neck of the school district and who won't allow it to expand and to grow and to become what it can be, that they will be removed. Or if they haven't been removed by the voters, that they will be ostracized is too wrong a word. I don't want that to happen to them. That their impact will be minimal, because we need exciting thoughts and exciting ideas, to grow that the energy in our schools match the energy in our city and the energy of the new population of Manchester, to make it into the great city that it can be. And what I love about Dr. Vargas, and I've said it many times, Dr. Vargas is the first person who's come into Manchester in the last 10 years who's talked about the fact that he sees no reason why the Manchester School District could not be the best school district in the state. He's talked about Central High School being the best high school north of Boston. He believes it already is one of the best schools north of Boston. That's all, with all due respect to Memorial and West and MST, etc. I don't mean them to denigrate them in any way, but I think our schools were that in the past and can be that in the future. But it's going to take vision and effort to do it. But the fact that we have a superintendent who's willing to say it, and hopefully will be working, with a mayor who actually believes it as well. Not a mayor who, with all due respects to Mayor Gatsis, who liked to say the right thing and talked about, his problem was, as I said many times, whistling past the graveyard, insisting everything is fine here, everything is fine here. And so long as you keep saying that, of course, then you don't need to make any change. Well, change needed to be made, and it wasn't going to happen under Mayor Gatsis. So I'm hoping that a smart Joyce Craig will give Dr. Vargas his head, allow him to do what he needs to do, keep the school board in its proper place, which is a place of oversight and etc. And advise, not as they're not the executive. They are a board, and I hope that will find a new equilibrium in there, that Joyce Craig, as the chief executive of the city, and the mayor will ensure that the division of authority and responsibility, etc., will be divided somewhat differently, and that the administration will be given its head, and that the school board would not be diminished in any way. I'm not saying that the school board should become unimportant and pushed off to one side. I'm saying the school board should involve itself with issues of policy and oversight, and it's a board that needs to meet once a month, maybe, and then hold people accountable. The problem is we have some people on the school board who actually think, without any qualifications, other than they like to hear themselves talk a lot, they believe that somehow they're educational experts. And secondly, there are some school board members, which I think continues to be a problem for the school board. There are some school board members who are anti-administration, anti-intellectual, anti-establishment, anti-everything. They're sort of, anarchist nihilists in their view, almost when it comes to public education. So. Those people need to be, they can have their voice because everybody's voice should be heard. But in the end, they represent a very tiny minority of people in this city, and that's the voice that they should have. So I'm hopeful of a new day starting in January, and I will be talking to the school board members, reaching out to school board members on this topic around having a quick start and moving immediately. And in this case, I mean a quick start for the administration. It would be terrible if incoming school board members were to take the ones who are new, who haven't been in already, to take their non-nuanced view of the school district and their limited view of it all, and to sort of bring in some changes based on a half-baked notion of what's really going on. I think in the end that if school board members, they don't have to agree with me. They might end up reaching a conclusion that's diametrically opposed to mine. But my suggestion is that they take a deep breath and that they allow the administration to move forward with what needs to move forward in the district, and then and push for those changes to happen quickly, while they themselves take some time to sort of learn the ropes and understand what's going on, and be very ready to come in with critical information and comment and feedback as things progress. But I'm hoping that this new day in Manchester happens. I also am hopeful that that we have with a different makeup some of the committees and the people assigned to committees. I hope that careful thought is given to the putting the right people on the right committees. There's a lot of that decision making, that sausage making, that Joyce Craig and her people will have to do in the coming weeks. A lot of that will determine how successful the school board is going to be over time. Because if you if you do the Trump thing and you take somebody who hates chickens and has a phobia for chickens and you put him in charge of the chicken coop, then that's a disaster waiting to happen. And we've seen this in the federal government already, where and you don't have to agree with me. It's an observation that can't be denied, and you could argue that you think it's a good thing, and that's fine, because that would be a legitimate argument. That putting people who, putting somebody in charge of the Environmental Protection Agency who hates the Environmental Protection Agency, who has sued that agency many times, putting them in charge of it is a good thing. Or putting somebody in charge of the Department of Education who has never had a child in public schools, who has spent fortunes trying to undermine public schools, to put that person in charge of public schools. Frankly, I just think it's a simple call that's a nonsense thing to be doing. It's entirely stupid, to use an unsophisticated word about it. And so what we've seen in the past in Manchester is we've seen people appointed to boards or subcommittees, appointed to subcommittees and made chairs and put on committees into places where they were totally unsuited to be. If I'm fighting with every single coach in every sport in the city of Manchester, and I really don't think there should be any sports in high schools, that they should all be privatized out to private clubs and the school should get out of the sports business, then who in their right mind would put me in charge of the school committee? We've got a caller coming in here. Hi, go ahead, caller. We don't have an awful lot of time, but what would you like to say?
That's why I waited, Jim. I didn't want to take up a lot of your time. It's Phil. How are you?
Hi, Phil. I'm good. How are you doing?
Good. 2 quick points. First of all, great show, and thank you for your commitment.
Thank you, Phil.
To doing all this. Not all, but most of the issues you talked about tonight, and I'm going to keep bringing it up. would at least see some relief if school board members would relinquish their health plan.
Right.
And we don't know what the savings would be. We've gone over them a bunch of times. We don't need to rehash it tonight.
Right.
But I want to keep that on the front burner.
Yeah.
To hopefully get that relief. And I do wish the new administration, meaning the Craig administration, the best of luck in dealing with not only the city, but in particular the school district. But be cautious, because one thing you didn't mention, and I know you're an upfront guy, is some of the people that ran on the Craig ticket, and you didn't say them, I'll say them, 6, 11, and at large,
Yeah.
have really not been supportive of the superintendent. Tessier, Bergeron.
DeRochers is 11, right?
11. The name, the 11 is the name's.
DeRochers.
Me right now.
DeRochers.
DeRochers, right.
Yeah.
And 12, not a big supporter either, but she lost. So,
Right.
I'm bringing it up because maybe somebody like you could let lend your voice to them to say, now's the time for a new day, rather than talking generalities and talk to the general public, but to really corral them and say, hey, look, this guy needs your support, and we
Right.
all need him to do a good job. So you getting behind him at least for 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, whatever it may be.
Right. Well, I fully support that, Phil. On both topics, I fully support that. I mean, we may disagree about the interpretation of where those school board members are today, and to me, the jury is still out on where they are.
Let me cut you off because I know
Yeah.
you're very,
Yeah.
It's black and white. There's no gray area there. You just need to look at the votes. So to that point, if we're really going to do it, let's do it.
Right.
I wish you didn't say that because let's really join hands and let's do it.
Right. I
Let's
agree.
get behind us. You really don't know where they stand.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. So the other thing is, though, and Phil, here's the other thing, though. We'll all know by like February, right? We get into it 3 meetings. I think it'll become pretty clear.
Jim.
Yeah.
Jim. Tessier, Bergeron, and DeRochers have been on the board long enough with Dr. Vargas that we know. And I don't want to rehash it.
Yeah.
It sounds like I'm beating them up.
Right.
Basically, I'm starting to pound on you. You know.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, you should know. And if you want to spend 5 minutes with me, I'll point you in the right direction as to why you should know. I'm not pulling this up a bit air.
No, I understand that.
Like you, if you're sincere in your defense,
Yes.
then we need to give Dr. Vargas a fair shake and let him roll. Then let's do it. Let's not talk about it.
Right, and I agree.
Eddie's not around. We can't kick him around anymore.
Right.
He's
It won't be.
It's yesterday's news.
Yeah.
So let's start getting on the horse and saying, look, if you're really going to give the guy a chance, let's give him a chance.
Right.
Let's not say there's certain factions and not name them.
Right.
Let's not say there's a group and not name them.
Right.
Name them.
Right. So I don't know if you
want public record now. It's all public record.
Right.
There's no gray area.
Okay, so let's just you call on 2 subjects. I think the issue with the healthcare thing, I don't know if this school board has the option to take that vote at its last meeting next Monday night, because as I understand it, and I support you 100%. I've moved to that position that they should not accept or not be even given the option to have health care, and it just isn't equitable, it isn't fair. And you look at anyway. I don't need to convince you of it, but I'm agreed on that. I just don't know the practicalities. So whether they'll take a vote next Monday night to do that, and that would mean that or perhaps you have to do it after. I don't know, but in any case, that one we'll see what happens with it. And then with regard, I spent 10 minutes of this program here tonight talking about there's a new day with a new administration that starts on the 1st of January or whatever date in January it is, and that people need to get out of the way. The school board needs to go back to being a policy-driven thing. Let the school superintendent do his job, and then after 12 months, let's measure him, and we'll talk about the results.
I'm out, Jim.
Yep.
And you did say all those things.
Yeah.
And I wish the Craig administration all the best of luck. And I agree with what you said. But what you didn't say, which is part of the problem,
right,
especially from a straight shooter like you,
right,
is who are those obstructionists in regards to Dr. Vargas?
Right. But
and when I bring up their names publicly, which isn't easy for me to do, I work in the district.
Yeah.
You say, well, I'm not sure. Well,
right.
If you're not sure, guess what? We have no chance.
Right. So
forget it. Let's just go to the beach. Open
okay.
up an umbrella, and all
We'll do
lay
that
in
too.
the sun.
Phil, I have to leave you go because
Huh?
I'm
If
getting.
you don't know, you should know.
All right, I'm getting shouted at to wrap up, so we're at the end of our time. But I appreciate the
Pat,
call. We'll
God
talk
bless
soon.
you.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate the call.
Bye-bye.
All right, thanks. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to finish on that note from my good friend Phil Sapienza, who has got plenty of knowledge and understanding of these things. So he's somebody I do listen to, and I appreciate him calling in. We'll be back at this next week, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for your time this week, and have a great week. I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday evening. All the best now. Bye bye.